Hello, everybody, and welcome to the International Symposium on Innovation in Education. And thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Amy Hawrylchak. Is that the right way of pronouncing your last
Yes.
name?
Yeah, you got it right on.
I tried my best. Thank you
This
so
is a
much.
tough one.
And the title of your talk is Project Based Learning at Tech Valley High School: Innovative, Authentic, Student Centered. Just the previous session was quite a bit actually also on teacher agency. And this is something that actually your dissertation was on teacher agency. When I read it, like, well, now I understand why Amy is doing what she's doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was so excited, 4 years ago when I started working at Tech Valley because I get to talk about agency all the time and how important it is in our teachers and in our students. And so it's really neat that that's where my path led me.
That's absolutely, that's where it starts. I mean, if you don't feel like you have agency or you don't exercise it, then you just do what you've been doing or you've been told to do, right? It's
That's right. That's right. I found that there was a lot of research about teacher agency in their own classroom, about what they're teaching, how they're teaching it, et cetera. But not a lot of research about teacher agency as it relates to school systems, and different pedagogy and different ways that innovative schools can be run. And so I was really excited about the idea of working in a school where teachers had such a large voice in and such agency in the running of the school, and the decision making, all of that shared decision making we really take to heart, and it's really borne fruit.
wow. And you started your career as a Spanish and French teacher and assistant principal, but then you joined as a chief academic officer and principal in 2021, Tech Valley. I know that I went there once with someone else, with a researcher, but that was some years ago. But I'm glad that they have. I don't know. You still consider it to be a new principal, or
Well, and we invite visitors to Tech Valley very frequently, and so I know you're going to be sharing our website and our contact information. I'd be very welcome and very excited to hear from people if you are interested in coming to visit Tech Valley. We do take part of our mission, as you'll hear in my talk, to share what we do and to give other schools some different ideas in how to teach and learn in an innovative environment.
that's amazing. And actually, something that I need to ask you is, because this is high school, uh, but if somebody who works in, let's say, middle school or elementary school, if they if they were thinking, oh, maybe I can learn something about how I can implement this, maybe in elementary school or upper elementary, they could probably learn something too, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of the structures that we have in place, we implement them at the high school level. But a lot of those structures can very easily be transferred to elementary and middle school. Much of our professional development is in the CTE areas, and also, in middle school, in our region, and honestly nationwide, where people will come and visit us for that. So we are very happy to customize a visit as it relates to how you would want to implement it, based on your community and your school.
That is so amazing. So let's learn a little bit more. You could start your presentation anytime. So fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. Here we go. Okay, you can let me know if you see that slide.
Yep. Yes.
Great. All right. So I always like to start on this slide, just to give people a little bit of context into what Tech Valley is and where we are. You'll hear in my talk today, I'll make sure I leave time for questions. I would always love to take questions, but I'm going to center ourselves a little bit on where Tech Valley is, how we function as a school, and then how do we do project-based learning? How do we make learning innovative at Tech Valley? So you see a couple important things. That's a picture of our building. We are located on the Nano campus in Albany. It's right next to U Albany. Has been at times part of the U Albany campus at this point. We have many businesses that exist on our campus in chip fabrication and research. But some important things to see at the bottom. You'll see that we are part of two different BOCES. Those who know the New York State system and other states in the country that have regionalized education systems for collaborative programs. We are part of Capital Region and Quest R3 BOCES. We are also a school in the New Tech Network. New Tech Network, for those who aren't familiar with it, is a national network of project-based learning schools, K-12. They provided us, as we started, with a lot of professional development, and they continue to provide us with that. And we also provide professional learning to schools within that network. It's really helpful, especially when you're doing things that are innovative and different outside of the box, to have other schools that are doing the same things so that you can have thought partners in your work. We really appreciate that. And then at the top, you see our tagline: innovative, authentic, student-centered. And you see it gets bolder and bigger as it goes on, because student-centered is really what it's all about. We really are about the learning and the success of our students. But we ask these three questions as we innovate. Are we being innovative? Are we looking to the future? Are we being authentic? Are we taking the New York State standards and the curriculum that we need to teach and making it real? As a principal, one of my proud moments is I never hear students ask, why do I need to know this global studies or this economics or this trigonometry? Because we make it authentic. And are we bringing students to the center of their learning experiences? And so, as Barbara, you already mentioned this, which was great. We do consider ourselves to be a hub for educator learning. We very frequently have educators, professionals, business professionals visit our school, whether it be something that they're just interested in exploring or are really at that implementation place. And so when you visit Tech Valley, you'll get a student-led tour, as you see on the bottom right there. But you'll also hear directly from students and teachers about what that process looks like. We can also go out into districts, do some coaching and professional learning in your districts. So who is Tech Valley? What do we look like? Here's a little map of the 7 counties around our school. That star in the middle is where we're located. We currently have 150 students in grades 9 through 12 from 32 different districts. And our students are chosen by a non-selective lottery, which is a really important point to mention and understand about how our school functions. We are not an elite STEM school that looks at transcripts and recommendations. Students who thrive at Tech Valley come to us because they enjoy working in a collaborative environment. They're looking for a unique learning experience, and they want to grow, both personally and academically. They don't come to us because they're looking for an elite experience. They come to us because they're looking for an innovative education experience, because for some reason, the traditional learning environment didn't fit for them. And they knew there was something different out there. And that's where we come in. That's where Tech Valley comes in. And so how do you, if anybody in the audience is, in a regional school where you have students from various different places, they're not coming to you as 9th graders with a built-in community of trust, a built-in culture. They're coming from many different places. About half of our students come from rural areas in our region, and then about a quarter come from urban or suburban environments around the Albany area. And so how do you take these students, expect them to collaborate in our learning environment and trust each other with their grade? It starts with culture. It starts with developing very intentionally a community designed for that academic risk-taking. To be able to receive feedback, you need to be able to trust the people that are around you. So we do have an advisory program where students can be connected with one trusted adult, and also, students in different grades. We have an honor code that is not just on the walls, and this is one of the most important things beyond the curriculum, is that we live and breathe our trust, respect, responsibility, stewardship. We call it our TRRS. It is a living and breathing entity that, as the principal, I talk about TRRS every day, because whether it's using cell phones in our school, or every principal's favorite, the dress code, how we interact with each other, it's really critical. And as we get to the learning, again, thinking outside the box, we have school-wide learning outcomes. So you see that our grading system is different. What students see on their report card is different. Students are graded on their understanding of the content And we call that knowing and thinking. So when students log into our learning management system, they'll see what I call these gas gauges, and they'll see their progress in each of our learning outcomes, because in each class that they're in, they are assessed on each of these learning outcomes. So every project, you'll get a grade in that orange, that knowing and thinking, knowing, okay, I met the standards and I know my content. But you'll also be not just assessed, but also instructed on how are you using your agency and self-direction as a student? How are you collaborating with your partners? How are you communicating both with your partners and with your teacher? And what does your technology and information literacy look like? How are you using the resources around you, and understanding that information? And so this information, these learning outcomes, they help the students see what are their areas of growth. Maybe they are past expectations, superb in that knowing and thinking, but that collaboration and communication is a bit of a struggle. And so that's where their goals will be on a particular project. And so sometimes we'll have individualized rubrics for students who might work on collaboration. Maybe they're a steamroller and they want to do all the work themselves instead of hearing the value that comes from their teammates. So they might have some different expectations for collaboration as they work on their own personal goals. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of what project-based learning is. What does it look like, right? We hear this phrase, project-based learning. I remember it back in my days in school. Every once in a while, a teacher, as you can see on the top of this slide, they would do a traditional unit where they'll give you a lecture. You do like a little activity, maybe a jigsaw activity with a couple articles. Then they'll give you a quiz to make sure you learned it. They'll do that a few times, lather, rinse, repeat, till you do some review and you get a test and they make sure you know your content. And once you're at the end, then the teacher will say, oh, hey, we can do a project. And a project might be a diorama, it might be a skit. They'll take out their Bloom's taxonomy and you might be demonstrating your learning in some different ways. But the project is the end. It's not the basis for your learning, you're just doing a project. So there's a difference between doing a project and project-based learning. In a project-based learning unit, as you see at the bottom, that purple, that project, it's not just at the end, an afterthought, that dessert after eating all your vegetables. It is the purpose for learning. So at the beginning of a project-based learning unit, you will have a project launch, which will be an authentic task and give the students context for what they will be learning during this project. And you will know at the very beginning, hey, in 3 weeks, you're going to have a presentation to our business partner, and here's what you need to present to them. And so they go through a process. I'm going to kind of peek back the curtain. They go through a process that we call know and need to know, where the students make 2 lists. Okay, I know what I have to do at the end of this project. What do I already know? And what do I need to know? And based on those need to knows, the teacher will develop activities and workshop, and yes, even lectures, and sometimes homework. And they'll have to do research and labs. So some of those traditional learning activities might happen, but they happen connected to the project and for the purpose of the project. So for example, if our students are making a podcast to be produced at our local radio station, they might find out at the beginning that they're going to be doing these podcasts, and they're going to have benchmarks in the middle. So for this project example has 2 benchmarks. One of their benchmarks might be an outline of their script. And maybe their second benchmark is the script fully written, so that they're not doing the project the night before. Throughout the project, they're learning the material and they're having these benchmark assessments. And that's where you see that really important feedback process. And they're going to get feedback from their teacher, but they're also going to get feedback from their peers. So again, in the red, you see some of the instructional activities, the learning activities, but that orange and blue is a really important part of that project, because when you look at how projects are used in businesses, right, in the post-education world, as people are working for companies, they work on projects, and you have benchmark meetings throughout the project to let your supervisors, let your collaborators know how you are doing, and we mirror that process here at Tech Valley. So we use these aspects of high PBL as teachers are designing projects, and our teachers are asking these questions as they are creating. So is this project, does it give the students an intellectual challenge? Are they able to accomplish something? Is it authentic? Are we reaching out to a business partner? So for example, if our students are doing if they're doing a trial, our students put the explorers on trial in global studies. So if they're going to put Columbus and Pizarro and Cortez on trial, we work with local law students and professors to ask, how do you create an argument? What does a trial look like? How do you prep your witnesses? How do you do your opening and closing statements? There's that authenticity when students are working hand in hand with those business partners. What's the public product? Am I presenting to a business partner? Sometimes we present to middle school students to say, hey, we're going to teach you a little bit about the content that you're learning. Oftentimes it's a business partner that will come in, and you'd be surprised at how often business partners are really interested in working with high school students. That is something when people learn about project-based learning that they think is a bit of a heavy lift, is connecting with those businesses. But it's really great for businesses to connect to their own future workforce and their local community. Collaboration, how are we making sure that students are needing to collaborate? Project management is a skill that is not incorporated in traditional curriculum, but in a project-based learning environment, project management is a huge piece of how we get the project done. It talks a bit about that agency and self-direction, talk about explaining to high school students how to work on their own executive functioning. Nothing does it better than making them do it themselves. So we do have these structures in place. We have contracts between the members of a team. We have a project timeline, a pacing chart that students will say, okay, this is a due date. This is the student who's responsible for it. And that's the way that they hold themselves accountable for that work. And then reflection, which is throughout the project and also at the end. So these are, as a teacher is developing a project, these are some of the questions that they're asking themselves. I wanted to throw up a couple of pictures of sample projects so you can get a sense of what this looks like. And I'll just briefly kind of go through the pictures. So you see the courtroom, that's, the explorers on trial there at the bottom right. You can see next to that, I'm going to go clockwise. So next to that on the left, you see two students near a river. They are participating in a citizen science research project with the Hudson River. And working with that real database. Then you see a boy with like a metal parabola. In Algebra 1, our students create solar heaters, and they're looking for what's the right parabola in order to most efficiently heat the water. We have our Rube Goldberg project in physics. Up at the top left, you see a mini golf project. It looks like little miniature desktop mini golf. Our geometry team works to design mini golf holes that have an automatic hole-in-one. So they need to learn the angles. So there's always a hole-in-one path. And we have two more. This is lessons in chemistry that our 10th graders taking chemistry will teach to our 6th and 7th graders as they're going through that beginning chemistry. So they're creating some games related to chemistry. And then in the top right is one of our students' favorite projects. We work with civil engineers who give our geometry students a plot of land to develop into a neighborhood. So not only do they learn about the geometry of developing houses and where the houses go, et cetera, but also how geometry is related into a field. And the very last project that I'm going to talk about, and then I'll leave some time for questions, is a project that we call iTerm that all of our students do every year. Not related to a particular class, but this is our career exploration experience where our students get to interview, they get to choose a career pathway they're interested in. They get to interview someone in that field and we help them connect. Sometimes our students will connect on their own, do some networking. Sometimes we help them connect and they interview. And then as juniors and seniors, they go out and do field work and job shadowing with their business partner. And they either find this is the field that I want to be in, or they find, nope, this is not the field I want to be in, which we always find just as useful to learn that information in high school rather than pursuing it in college. So we use the Japanese term ikigai, which means reason for being, as the basis of our iTerm. And those are the questions we're asking students. Do you love it? Are you good at it? Does the world around you need it? And is this something you can get paid for? And so there's so much more we could, Barbara, I know we could always talk about Tech Valley all day, but I wanted to give, really the 50,000 foot overview of some of our important, some of our important things that we do. So I'm going to,
Absolutely. I have one major question. I mean, the presentation is amazing. I like the idea of this project management. I'm like, I heard these words, but they were not in educational system. They don't come from there. I was like, where did I hear it? Well, someplace else in a different area of expertise. And a lot of students, neurodivergent students, students on the spectrum, they are not doing very great, so to speak, in the traditional educational system. Um, I need to ask how they do in this type of learning, and what kind of help, guidance, sort of you provide, the school is able to provide to help them also to find themselves in, well, it's quite complex learning too. They doing something.
Absolutely. So, I think that's a really great question. About a third of our students are students with disabilities, either a 504 or an IEP. I think most commonly, the disabilities that we find are ADHD and the autism spectrum. And we've had 100% graduation since we started. Our first graduating class was 2011.
Yeah.
And we do have 3 special ed teachers on our staff, and they push into classes in a co-taught model, and they do have resource room. But I think you would hear from our teachers, and what I see in practice is one of the biggest impacts that our special ed teachers have is as they co-plan with teachers. So we do set aside time for our teachers to co-plan together, and that's a time for our special education teachers as they're working with their content partners to say, okay, let's talk about our teams as we create our student teams, and what strengths are we bringing in. Let's talk about our instruction to make sure it's multimodal, to make sure we are connecting with student needs. And as they work with students, our special education teachers have a really strong focus on that agency and self-direction learning outcome. And we have found that if students hit mastery, 85%, if students hit mastery in agency, they have no problems with the other learning outcomes. And so we do spend 9th grade really working on agency, and that's executive functioning. It's making sure you're getting your stuff done on time. It's managing your own time, and it's really having that agency, that care for your own learning. And so we really stress in 9th grade. We work with our 9th graders on it, and we find that you really put that investment in 9th grade, and that return on investment when you work on agency and executive functioning, it really returns tenfold, because you have students, regardless of what their strengths and struggles are, if they are invested in their learning, they'll find the outcome. They'll find a way. But it really is critical that our special education teachers are there to support. I think they sometimes they turn the box a little bit and may have our content teachers think a little bit differently in a really great way. And you'll find, I find very frequently our content specialists going to our special education teachers because their training is different and their focus is different. And so it's helpful feedback that our teachers enjoy collaborating with.
That's absolutely amazing. Now, when someone would like to learn a little bit more about this and how to potentially start something like that, where can they reach out to maybe ask you some questions, to just ask for directions?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is techvalleyhigh.org. All of our contact information is on there. I can certainly add it. I can certainly add it in the chat. We absolutely welcome visitors, whether it be virtually or in person, based on your location and capacity. Whether it's a consult, we would absolutely love to speak with anybody about it.
And virtually as well, right? Because these days we have to adjust, and maybe not everybody could just fly in and right,
Yes.
and learn. It's not so easy and can be costly, but you are very open to, as a passionate person and teacher and principal, you just want to spread awareness about the results and about how much better learning can be for every child. That's what we want to see. I want to thank you so much for this session. I really appreciate it. I hope we can collaborate it more in the future. Thank you so much, Amy, and thank you so much, our audience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please feel free to reach out. I'm excited to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye, and wish you a wonderful rest of weekend.
Thank you. You too. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.